Some people say Jean-Michel Guenassia's books are full of clichés about Russian life, but personally, I think it's more complicated than that. I'm Raya, an actor and writer. Today I want to talk about The Incorrigible Optimists Club and its sequel, The Promised Lands. I read both books in Russian, and by the way, the second one, The Promised Lands, doesn't seem to be translated in English yet. So, if you're hoping to read it in English, keep that in mind or correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Still, I'll keep this video spoiler-free whether you've read the books or not. I thought I wanted to read something about immigrants, and then I found the Incorrigible Optimists Club in one selection. But it turned out to be much more than just a book about immigrants. Guenassia explores the fragility of hope, how people keep believing despite betrayal, moral ambiguity, especially how people compromise in order to survive. He seems drawn to outsiders, especially those who are trying to reconcile idealism with reality. His characters are often flawed but noble. They carry both suffering and dignity. The Incorrigible Optimist Club, set in 1960s Paris, mixes coming of age with political and historical reflection. The story follows Michel, a 12-year-old boy who stumbles into a back room of a bistro where a group of Eastern European exiles and intellectuals gather to play chess and discuss life. It's rich with Cold War themes, exile, identity, and the delusionment of those who fled communism. He also touches on the theme of French colonialism in Algeria, but explores it further in the second book, The Promised Lands. While the Incorrigible Optimist Club focused on Parisian boy and a room full of exiles, The Promised Lands takes a panoramic view on the 20th century, jumping across countries and decades. The book takes place in France, Algeria, Israel, Italy, and the Soviet Union. Guenassia shows how politics mixes with personal life and shapes it. Jean-Michel Guenassia was a screenwriter before writing novels, which explains his narrative pacing and structure. It's cinematic narration switching between close-up emotions and broader historical shifts. He uses intercutting, which I really love. It's when the story is interrupted at the most interesting moment and then shifts to another character. It works because every character is unique and deep. You want to know more about all of them. Structure is layered, stories within stories, personal against political. His prose is simple yet lyrical. He doesn't use literary fireworks, but lets the feeling do the work. I found myself teary-eyed half the time while reading. I can't say these books are funny, but they do have humor. Even in heavy scenes, it's a very subtle kind of humor, though quiet kind of irony, I'd say. It's slow-paced cinematic reading that gives you time to think and reflect. At the same time, these books absorb you and don't let go until the very end. For me, this is anti-communist prose, well told and talented. Guenassia doesn't explain why communism doesn't work for good. He just tells personal stories and that feel real, complicated, and you make conclusions on your own. He doesn't romanticize any ideology. Instead, he often dissects the personal cost of political beliefs, especially communism versus delusionment, without making any side the hero. To give you an idea of contrast, look at Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. It's pretty straightforward story with some very flat characters, all in praise of capitalism. I don't trust fanatics on any side, but that's a whole other story. Let's move on to Jean-Michel Guenassia. The next theme that really touched me, and it reveals more complex in The Promised Lands, is unlived lives. Guenassia fills books with characters who exist in the gap between the life they want and the life they actually live. Basically, the characters are living in between their dreams and reality. You see characters' lives as a whole in the pages, and it makes you reflect on your own life too. Sometimes you think how many things could go wrong just because of one small decision. So many times I wanted to tell Frank, one of the characters who loved Dostoevsky, about one of the writer's beliefs that clinging to the same convictions your whole life is a kind of immorality. To those who blame Guenassia for using clichés, I'd say, let's break these clichés down. The ex-communism as a tragic figure, the romanticization of exile and chess playing, a common Western intellectual trope about Russians and Eastern Europeans. There are exaggerated backstories, KGB torture, losing family, and philosophical monologues. But the characters don't feel like caricatures. They're not funny Russians or mystical Slavs. Instead, they feel like real people with all the complexity that comes with it. They're individualized. They mourn, love, fail, betray, survive. Guenassia may use familiar patterns, but he treats his characters with respect and affection. That's why they feel alive. They're tired men in a bistro, playing chess, missing home, arguing about nothing, and trying to stay human. I think that's enough to see them as real human beings and not a symbol. Reading these books resonated with me in very personal way. I felt their desperation and wish to live, and it reminded me of what's happening in Russia today. Unlike the characters, I still have an internet connection with my loved ones, but even that freedom is under threat. The Russian government wants to take it as well and forbid all messengers except their one and phone calls from abroad. I believe that all authoritarian regimes collapse. Unfortunately, it takes time. On the one hand, you see so many amazing lives while reading these books, but on the other, some stories are without clear resolution. Some characters are left lost, and the author doesn't always explain why things happen. You kind of understand why, but you don't want it to be that way. And it's life. Guenassia captured life with all contradictions, wonderful but tragic, beautiful and full of suffering, exceptional but easy to forget. It's a melancholy humanistic reading that leaves you with a feeling that life is precious in all imperfections. If you read these books, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If not, I hope you'll want to after this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!